So when we did analyze our very first property, so Doris and I, we had to split profits, right? Since, there's two of us.
Yeah.
So our very first property, we called it our Starbucks house. The reason why is after we learned how to run numbers, we actually cash flow $57. So it wasn't even enough for us to buy a coffee a day.
I was gonna say, you guys are ballers, aren't you? $57.
So we made a whopping $57,
and we had to split it in half.
Yeah. Right? So it wasn't even $1 a day that we actually made.
Yeah. So that day we learned very quickly on that. If we're gonna get into real estate, let's not revisit that whole Starbucks situation again. And then we got into multifamily.
Hey guys, welcome back to Ask Me How I Know. I am so excited about my guest today. We've rescheduled this podcast a couple of times to make it work. And today we rescheduled it because these two savvy sisters, that's the name of their company, they're in the same town together. And so we're like, we have to make this work. So welcome to Ask Me How I Know, Alice and Doris.
Thank you so much, Julie.
We're excited to be here. Thanks.
It is. I always love pre-conversations. And so we'll just take that pre-conversation into the show now.
Yeah, perfect.
So one part that I've watched you, I've listened to you guys speak in different elements, different platforms. And so I know a little bit about your story, and I don't usually lean too much into it, but I think there are a lot of small business owners out there. Now, are you guys, if you ladies wouldn't mind, you're both recovering small business owners? Is that a safe way of phrasing that?
That's a very safe way to put it. I never thought about that one.
I'm a recovering perfectionist, so. But if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about your experience as a small business owners. First of all, what business did you have? And then
I'll let Doris take this one away, right?
Yeah.
So we actually started a restaurant about 16 years ago. And we got into the business that people tell us never, ever to get into because it's high risk.
You're going to fail in the first 2 years.
Exactly. And in this case, we basically didn't do well the first 6 months. So, and we got into that because, of course, I was coming out of college. I was 23, graduating, and I didn't even graduate yet when I was doing the business plan. And Alice started working a couple of years and realized that's not the way to go. So we had the opportunity to have our first business, and let alone it was a combination of everything. The business was development. So we didn't even know we got into real estate at that point because we built the restaurant literally from ground up, picked the location. It was just an empty lot, build it up. So that was our first real estate experience.
And did your family have any background at all in ground? Is this all new territory for everyone in your life?
Building a new restaurant from ground up was all new territory. When they asked me where the outlets went, I had no idea. Right.
And we didn't know that a fridge takes up this much amp. So we had to really strategically position it. We thought just get the stuff going. I'll move the equipment in and then we'll be fine.
And we'll rearrange it as needed, like living room furniture.
So we learned very quickly how to go ahead and get involved in real estate. And then we started the restaurant, conceptualize it, ran it very successfully, had a great run on the 16th year. We actually sold it. And it's still running right now. We're pretty I would say we're pretty active in it, still as far as advisory. Mm-hmm. And during the time of the restaurant, we were able to scale it. We actually, we had a lot of hurdles starting in cash flow reasons. Anything you could think of in a small business happened to us. Lawsuits, to everything. So
you get to face lawsuits?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just a book. Like, what chapter do you want to read now of that? So after that, we were able to scale the business. And things were running so smoothly, we actually didn't have a position anymore. So Alice is a visionary of the two of us, and she came up with this great idea 8 years ago. Let's go ahead and get into real estate because I'm kind of bored now. So we get into real estate and don't know a darn thing about it. Same thing like the restaurant. And we decided to buy our first single family. Did everything in the book, probably, I wouldn't say wrong, no. But it was not the most profitable, efficient, whatever you want to call it way. And so we learned again quickly on, wow, real estate is not as easy as I thought. I thought it's just buying a property, someone pays down your mortgage, and you're golden. You just have to repeat that probably 50 times, and now you have another, investment type of retirement fund, and that's what we kind of did real estate for. And fast forward into that, 2 years ago, we actually started to dive into multifamily a little bit more and came across a Rye Cleaves boot camp, which happened to be in Chicago, and I have a property out there as well. So we happened to just dive in there and completely was mesmerized by the opportunity, the cash flow, everything associated with real estate. And then we took a step back and realized single family is probably not the way to go. And now we know how to really make money off of it. We never cashed anything out for our properties. It was just you pay as if someone pays it down. We never had cash flows. We didn't understand what that meant.
I mean, we did everything very traditionally,
Yeah.
20% down, and we used all our own cash for all the rehab. We never even thought about, going to the bank and say, lend us
no
some
cash,
money,
no cash out to buy. It was just save, and then plug it into real estate.
And I told Doris, I was like, I don't know about you, but one house, maybe every other year was probably the track, right?
Yeah.
Because there's only so many 20,000, 20% down we could put in these homes. And obviously we weren't buying, properties the right way, right?
Yeah.
We weren't analyzing them the right way.
Yeah. As long as it covered mortgage, to us, it was
a good deal.
It was a good deal.
And that's what a lot of, people who think they want to get into real estate investing, that's a common narrative right there is, it made sense on napkin. I just took my expenses and the mortgage. I mean, just, you guys are overthinking it. This works.
Yeah.
So when we did analyze our very first property, so Doris and I, we had to split profits, right? Since, there's two of us. So our very first property, we called it our Starbucks house. The reason why is after we learned how to run numbers, we actually cash flow $57. So it wasn't even enough for us to buy a coffee a day.
I was gonna say, you guys are ballers, aren't you? $57.
So we made a whopping $57,
and we had to split it in half.
Right? So it wasn't even $1 a day that we actually made.
Yeah. So that day we learned very quickly on that. If we're gonna get into real estate, let's not revisit that whole Starbucks situation again. And then we got into multifamily and really just submerged ourselves in it. And then took some of the learnings that we did, met some great people who are way senior, way more experienced than we were. And we were able to kind of leverage that and just scale up from there.
It's amazing what a game changer it is when you are able to, they always say your net worth is your net worth, but truly to surround yourself by champions that you want to emulate, it's a game changer.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then we realized that real estate brought a lot of back end benefits, like tax benefits and all of that. And when we had our business, it was just straight up, the tax.
Uncle Sam.
It was just insane. I mean, we were very shocked that we were making money because restaurants, first of all, you don't really make a whole lot of money. We were excited about that, but then a good chunk of it gets taken away. So we're like, okay, we're making, but we're not really making. So that's when we realized that business owners need to leverage a passive way and an active way to go ahead and offset some of their taxes. Yeah.
I love this. I need to know what went wrong. Before we go further, you guys are so amazing, you ladies, excuse me, you ladies are so amazing. And I just love this conversation already. What went wrong? When you guys were working on, you said a lot of things went wrong along the way. What's one of those lessons that you feel like is maybe a common mistake that a lot of people make that if they could hear you now, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle. I'm going to do that same thing. Nope, I'm not. I heard Alice and Doris. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we rehab. We don't know how to rehab anything. So I was trying to take the easy way out by trying to save a buck. So I got all my contractors through Angie's List. I didn't know how to vet them because I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think our first experience
isn't Angie's List totally legit? That's what
it is legit.
It is.
No, it is legit, but you want to vet them.
Yeah, we never did trust but verify very good.
Yeah. So then I remember remember the very first time I was just trying to save maybe $50. It wasn't even much. And I hired these two guys to go ahead and just fix the backyard door. They fixed it all right. And then I came back the next day. The tenant said the door is just flopping in the air. Can you come by and look? And literally the door is out of the doorway. And of course I called those guys and they said, oh no, when I left, it was fine. It was probably the wind. Your tenant probably did something to it. So of course, then at that point I had to spend another $600 getting somebody else. So all in all, that whole backyard door could have cost me the very first time, someone who is just really experienced in that and taking care of it. So what we learned out of it is trust but verify. And you need to have a good source of people that know what they're doing. And price should not be the number one factor when it comes to doing any sort of improvement to the property. So don't look at the price. Definitely compare apples to apples.
And another thing was interesting as a woman, I don't know if your experience is, Julie, or not, but as a woman investor, especially when you don't have a male team, in your team, a lot of times these contractors happen to be male, right, or men. And if you don't know the lingo and you don't look like you know what you're talking about, I'm not saying everybody takes advantage of that, but you have to be able to literally know if you are being taken advantage of. And that's the same thing when we were in the restaurant industry. It happened to be very male dominated, and we literally had to do research to understand it. So you talk the lingo just like they are.
I can attest to that as well. Like, you better know what you're talking about beforehand, so that, and even just to verify that the work was done correctly. Right. You have to have some running knowledge. I have a friend, and her husband has a plumbing company, and she was talking about she's literally built, y'all. She's built a house. She has this. What I'm just like, who are you? Talk about like superwoman. She builds a house her family lives in. I was telling her recently over coffee, I said, you should start your own branch of that and have only women, because how often do women want to have women? It's more comfortable. You feel safer, all the stuff. Yeah. So I totally, that resonates so much with me.
Yeah.
Definitely trust
and a lot
that
of people
verify.
and a lot of people just get really nervous. As a woman, you're just wondering, how do I even get started? I don't know how to fix toilets. That's the first thing, if I get into real estate, I don't know how to remodel anything or rehab anything, which is very true for a lot of us, but there's a lot of other resources that you could go ahead and really, get some help from. Is just really understanding what you need help with.
So true. So as you were investing in single family homes, and you're like, well, we can do this every other year, and wow.
Yeah, and then we realized then we start meeting other people, and they said, well, I have 100 units, I have 50, and I'm trying to do my calculation based on my pace. I said, well, I'll be way above. I don't even get to enjoy any of the benefits by the time I get to 50 at the rate that I'm doing one house a year. That's not going to work. So we had to really think on a much bigger level at that point, how we're going to scale.
So how did having the restaurant business, by the way, before we began this conversation, for the audience, just so they know, we were talking about all the 18-year-olds that are getting into real estate, absolutely crushing it. And I'm listening to your story thinking, you were in your young 20s starting a restaurant from the ground up. What are you talking about? That's amazing. But what did just that whole nature, you learned a significant amount working together as you start this restaurant business and become restaurateurs. Like, what did you learn that has translated into your multifamily investing?
The biggest thing we've learned, since we're actually sisters, and business partners, it makes it very challenging if we don't define roles. Like any other business partnership, we have to see each other during holidays, right? And we can't really necessarily, ban them from holiday parties, right? And all that. So one thing we've learned is actually roles, and take these roles as you would do a typical business partnerships, right? So if Doris was involved something and I was involved, we have to hold each other accountable to those roles and, the duties and the performance of that. And that translated into real estate as well. So we play off our strength. Thank goodness we're opposite, right? So we have the same vision and goals, but the way we do things, the way we think about processes is completely opposite. So that works really well in partnership as far as businesses, go. So that totally translated into the real estate end. And another thing that brought into the real estate space is because we had about 60 employees.
Yeah.
So we're able to, I guess, manage teams and
Yeah.
manage different personalities, and that translated to working with a lot of contractors and a lot of teams and investors, into the real estate side. So that definitely supported that.
Yeah. And the other thing we learned out was, delegation. We learned how to we learned how to scale and delegate is really the big thing. And, running a, multi-million-dollar restaurant, and when our competitors are like your Applebee's, and those sizable scales, that we realized, with real estate, it's the same thing. You have contractors you work with, you have tenants, you have property managers, you have investors now that we work with, that you have that combination. It's the same thing. Now, as long as we delegate and we're able to go ahead and utilize each other's strengths, we can really scale up. And that's what we realized, that it's really business is business, and real estate happens to be another industry we're in now.
Yeah, I'm going to share a funny thing with you, Julie. Just 1 second, right? So Doris and I, we own a restaurant. However, we don't know how to cook at all. So we're not like the chef of the team. So we actually learned how to hire an amazing team because of that reason, right? Same thing with real estate. Like I tried to put up blinds the other day, and that's not my jam. So I realized that too. So even though something I maybe could, spray paint furniture, that's about, where my extent of like rehab knowledge is, but
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really important for, for everyone to really understand and embrace, is that, so often we hear that concept, like fake it till you make it. Sometimes you just don't even need to fake it. Just go hire somebody to do it.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer, whatever you don't want to do or whatever you're not good at doing, there's always going to be someone else better than you, and just go ahead and partner with that or find that person to work for you. Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely true and powerful. You unlock full potential. When I believe if everybody just stays in their own lane and plays, like some people say, don't play to your strengths all 100%. It's all your eggs in one basket. But if you have a team that you can depend on and everybody's bringing it, you're unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of like you two lovely ladies.
Thank you. Right? Just like you too.
Yeah.
So as you are in, I guess I want to also just touch back on that a little bit and remind everyone listening right now that it is imperative. Don't hinder yourself just because you're trying to learn something that you don't want to be hanging blinds. Don't take time to learn it. Don't slow your momentum down to learn something that you don't need. Like, you're saying, delegate, hire, delegate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now you have this fantastic, and I mean, I love everything I've ever heard either of you speaking on. I'm always just sucking it in and growing and learning from it. You guys have Two Savvy Sisters, this amazing investment firm, but you have a specific mission. And I think that mission really came from your restaurant experience with small businesses. Okay, let's talk about our small business owners out there right now that are suffering.
Yes.
They're hemorrhaging because they're paying so much in taxes and they don't even know how to I'll just let you talk about this. How do you help them out?
Yeah. So our mission right now is we want to combine the two, because we've gotten so much information and experience as a small business owner, how to scale, how to be nimble and pivot and be resilient during this time, that we want to be able to go ahead and share that when you do have your hard-earned money working for you in your active business side, that real estate is another area that you could actually invest in and not really take too much additional time out of your crazy work life already. I'm also a small business consultant. So I actually currently I help small businesses either scale up their business, and I also help, there's a good portion of some of the business that I'm in actually are not doing as well. And how do we go ahead and really pivot during this time to stay afloat in the business world? So because of that, I've seen many different industries come through. Actually, most of them are not in the hospitality industry recently. So I've gotten a chance to go ahead and really be able to come in the forefront and actually tell them, this is what you're making. This is how we could protect it. We do a little bit of asset protection as well, to make sure that their assets are taken care of, their heirs, when they start to retire, that this is what we need to do. And then most importantly, run the active side of the business, which is how do we take care of our cash flow coming in, and how do we potentially maybe offset it a little bit more by having less of Uncle Sam take the money and then moving that to something like a sound investment, which is like real estate. So that's really the majority of it that we do, is just hand holding them from beginning to end and just seeing another option at this point.
I love that. I love the hand holding that takes place.
Yeah.
Alice, go ahead. It looked like you had something.
No,
you
I
wanted
was
to add.
going to say a lot of small business owners, including us, really didn't understand financial, especially came to the retirement sector of it. A lot of them, because they're not from corporate, there is no retirement plan in place, for them. And if they didn't have that knowledge or financial knowledge on that, they honestly think that, okay, this cash flow that we're getting today might, last forever. And in reality, if they sold the business or they got hurt in any way that they can't, continue on the active business, there is no cash flow, and it stops. And that's the one thing that's a lot of small business owners don't realize. It's great when there's money coming in. The minute it stops, it's like, what happened, right? And nobody really, not saying nobody, but a lot of small businesses don't understand about investing in, retirement and real estate. We teach that it's a great investment or retirement tool. Or even, somewhere to park the money for college education, for their kids. So that's what we work on a lot, because when we had the business, we were so busy in the day-to-day that we didn't even realize that, oh yeah, we got to talk about retirement, right? I mean, we were in our 20s when we started. Nobody thinks about retirement, but we also think that we're invincible at that time.
And I think a lot of small business owners are like that, where they have a dream, they have a vision, a passion, and now they're taking action on it. And that action just snowballs, gets a hold of them. And now they're like, I'm picturing the Charlie Brown cartoon and that character Pigpen, where he just has all the stuff swirling around. Like, now these people that started out with all the best intentions and this wonderful purpose, it's now just a hodgepodge, and they can't even see past, to solve any of the problems. And they can't even see, like you're saying, they're not even thinking about retirement. Those, I will put in here, since you guys said, mentioned that you had sold off your restaurant business, that I worked for a small sporting goods company in college, and it had been in my community for over 75 years. And when the final owner sold it off, well, he wasn't the final, he sold it off. My boss had sold it off, and he was supposed to get a residual income off of that. And that was supposed to be part of his retirement plan. And guess what? It tanked and it went bankrupt. So small business owners sometimes are, like you're saying, they're making these plans, and maybe they're even planning for retirement, but now they've sold it. And unlike your business, where you're still, kind of part of it and everything, now it's gone. And now it's really gone, and they're in their retirement years. So you're talking about the preparation to really secure finances.
And more of the exit strategy. Nobody ever talks about exit strategy when you own a small business, because everybody, like you said, we're in the dream, we're in the mix, and you're making good money today, but nobody ever talks about what happens when we're not here to continually actively work the business. As you know, most small businesses, if you're not actively involved in working it, it kind of fizzle and kind of go downhill from there. So
the other thing is, a lot of people think, because I do really basic valuations, and I kind of let them know, if you're going to sell it today, this is how much you're going to get. And usually more than 80% will say, that's not right. I can't even go ahead and survive off 1 year. I'm like, exactly. Because a lot of people reflect sales to what it's worth. So if I'm doing $1 million in sales in my business, that means I'm going to get $1 million. Oh no. You'll be lucky if you even got 20% of that. So and then when they look at it, that, well, then I can't afford to retire, or I can't afford to sell it now. So then we tell them it's usually a 5-year plan out. If you're going to decide today, it's 5 years from now at least, so you can go ahead and get everything prepped up, lined up, get all your people ducks in a row, and then go ahead and either exit, whether you're selling or whatever you need to go ahead and do. But this is really important. It really kind of just brings an awakening to them and realize there's got to be a secondary source now, because I thought this was my only way out, and you can. So,
and it's such that importance of always, like we were talking about earlier, just having a broad network. But if you are limited to your own thinking, then you're completely limited and isolated, and you're going to get, you have so many blind spots, and you're going to just get, steamrolled. So huge important factor right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I always say this, I think every episode, I'm so curious. You guys have an amazing partnership. And I've heard in the past, having listened to both of you, that sometimes mom helps helps mediate. I'm wondering if you can speak to how you resolve conflicts that arise, and maybe how that would translate to husband and wives, or partners that are in a relationship, a meaningful relationship, or specifically that, because that's a unique position that you guys are in when you're committed to somebody as family. It's a game changer.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
One thing we actually did, from a mentor when we started the restaurant business, was actually have a lot of things in writing, like a contract. So because we're sisters, it's, eventually we'll have our own lives, right? You'll have family, that you'll like divide and split up. And so one of our mentors was saying, you got to have it in paper, whatever it looks like, right? Because now it's fun and games, right? When we're making money. But the minute, like Doris mentioned, we had a lawsuit, right? A lawsuit comes in, or there's something else that, triggers, then all of a sudden we're pointing fingers, right? So we want to make sure that gets out of the way. So we talk about all the hard things of it, and how to even break off like a relationship like this if it didn't work out. So I guess my 2 cents is, I'm coming from a coaching, like I'm a life coach as well, right? So I'm coming from the coaching space, and let's talk about all like the bad, like stuff that nobody ever talks about, right? And that's exactly how we approach a lot of things. And even in our real estate joint ventures or partnerships with others, we talk about all the things, like how to get a divorce before how we get married, right?
Right.
Right. So we want to take all that out, because emotions get crazy when, shit hits the fan, unfortunately. But it's more, and then you're involving money, right? That really tickles everybody, game. So we talk about all that. And that's one of the biggest, I guess, game changers that I would let anybody know before they jump into any sort of partnership or a relationship, is to talk about the things that can go wrong, and how do we resolve that, and what does that look like.
I love that. It's like almost like a PPM for every, for the partnership. And I'm thinking of, oh shoot, I forgot the name of the book, but he talks about conscious uncoupling. It's almost like, okay, well, instead of giving a divorce,
I think it was Catherine Woodward Thomas or something, that wrote conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, and it might have been, I was thinking of it's a book on mindset, actually, and
okay,
his last name starts with a V, and he talks about it just briefly. It was interesting, but I'm thinking, like, it's this concept of you can resolve things in a really peaceful, harmonious way.
Yeah.
And when you have that structure set in place, as you're talking about, let's talk about how many ways this can go wrong and what we'll do. Then it does create a nice platform.
Yeah. And every so often, obviously, is revisiting the goal, like what's the point of this? Because eventually she's going to start thinking, well, I want this in real estate, and I am going to want this. So we have to constantly kind of revisit, okay, what's the purpose? Are we buying this property to satisfy, this type of goal that we have? So we do have to visit every single property coming in, does it take care of it? Because you do start to wander, and, like Rod says, you get the what is this shiny object syndrome.
I have the shiny
this is great, and then you're like, wait, we gotta reel them in. So you have to constantly talk about it, and being that we're sisters too, and even in a more of like a spousal relationship, you have to talk about how you're feeling on this whole thing, because it's really important to kind of express, I'm not really liking how this thing is going in terms of like how you're taking charge. I thought it was my responsibility, and we have to really back and share with each other how we feel.
So over communicate is probably the best way to say it.
That's a really important thing. Over communication is always better. My dad used to ask questions, and then he would ask basically the same question in like 20 different ways, all in kindness. But he said, if you just keep asking, you'll unearth a lot more than you realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that communication is key. Now I'm going to ask I don't know if you guys have ever been asked this, but is there a point where you guys think that you ladies think that maybe you won't work together? Where, I mean, I have seen this with other partnerships where one becomes more interested in a certain niche and their goals are no longer aligned, and they're like, that's fine, let's just start our own, businesses.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
we actually did, talk about things like that. And even when we're presented business deals all the time, not just in real estate, but just business opportunities. And some of the deals might not align with me, let's say, and Doris, she'll take over and she'll start her own, company with that particular, whatever, joint venture group. So yeah, we've definitely had conversations on that. So as long as we like the project, we could go in. But if she likes it a little bit more, she's more than happy. Like, you could do your own thing, right?
Yeah, and then the other thing stemming off of that, because we are in small business for a long time and now we're in real estate, we also invest in business as well. So in the similar concept as a real estate, we do joint ventures and partnerships, because I run operations and I understand how to scale. Typically, people would ask us to come in to get equity into a deal, a business deal. So because we can help scale.
That's exciting. I think that's one of the things that I love about the multifamily niche is that, you can have your partnership, but somebody else can go. It's not 100% occupying one's time.
Yeah.
But it would prevent you from being able to explore other opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is fantastic. All right. Well, do you have an exit strategy? Are you guys going to just continually invest forever? Or do you have a point where you're like, and that's where we're going to watch, the sunset?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time because our goal really is to be full-time limited investing partners. So the active game is a lot of fun and we enjoy it right now. I think ultimately we really love the people side. I'm more of an education person. I love to educate. In fact, I wanted to get an MBA just to go ahead and teach. And people are like, no. You don't need to spend the time and money. Just tell people what you know right now and teach them because you have enough knowledge right now. So I bypassed the MBA and I went straight into teaching. And now I just love the education aspect of it. So I see myself a lot more into the education side.
Hands down, I agree. Like, mailbox money is my jam too. So my ultimate goal is to sit on the beach with you, right? Somewhere probably in the tropics and be like, oh, let's check on our mailbox money today, right? And my thing is I love educating women in particular. One of my things is I love educating young girls and women into business sector and how to develop that entrepreneur mindset and into whatever venture they're going into. To take it, pretty much security and freedom in their own hands as well. That's the biggest thing that, I work with. So
I love that. I love that mission. Monique Halm has a similar mission, and she talks about how when women are empowered, it changes an entire community. She has, she has different references, and it's amazing what happens because women generally share and give and perpetuate it out, and it's exciting. So when you're empowering women from the stage of young women, I just imagine what kind of world is that going to create? So
it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I know a couple of years back, I was out in Africa with an organization we call Just Like My Child, and their goal was to educate the girls there, get them educated in a space where, they're not prone to, young marriages. I mean, you have these young girls that were sold off because the family were like, no, you're a girl. And in their mind, you're not as worthy as a male child, It's unfortunate, but that happens. And so this program actually educates these girls where they become professional into doctor spaces, teachers, attorneys, and or businesswomen. And it just completely changed their lives, their family lives. And it's a pretty powerful thing. And after that, I said, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. Go out there and teach, ladies, like, hey, you could take control of your future. Obviously you could, do whatever you want, but, owning that power, for yourself and be able to have choice, it's amazing.
I love the heart behind that so much, Alice. And I'm wondering what that village and what that community will look like 20 years from now. that impact on that village of that area is just going to be
Mhm.
profound and exciting. And a lot of times a lot of people are, and I've done this myself, where I've gone and done service work in other countries where the needs are very clear and very obvious. But I love that you are bringing that back stateside, because
Mhm.
I feel that sometimes our stateside people get neglected with these very issues, and we're facing them. They're just kind of camouflaged a bit.
Yeah.
And I love that you are tackling that. It's amazing. I did not know that, and I'm just so happy.
No, my thing is that the more like choice we're able to give people, right, through education and power and knowledge, and action is more important than anything. But the more that you are able to, provide that, the more choice someone has, it's so much better.
Yeah.
Like that freedom of like choice, is being to choose what they want.
Oh, I love that. As we wrap up, there are so many ways we could take this, because you have so much insight on so many different levels. But if you were to impart one final gem to the audience, now's your moment.
As far as, when it comes down to real estate, this is on our level, what we know is you can do it even though you're not familiar with the space. A lot of people have limitations because they're not familiar, and because if I don't know it, I'm not going to do it. I'll just sit on the sidelines and wait for a more perfect, mature time to do it. And there is never a perfect time. So if you're really kind of thinking about it, you can just go ahead and do it. There's way too much information out there for you not to even take the first step.
Oh, I love that. It's so much like, isn't that like all major life decisions, right? Like important relationships or starting a family and all of that. It's like, there's never the best right time. Like there's never a best right time to start your business.
Yeah.
And my big thing is exactly what you're saying, Julie, is find a tribe of people that you resonate with, right?
Yeah.
And find someone that's gone the path that you've gone, or going the way that you want to be going, and just find your tribe. Especially all the ladies investors out there. It might seem scary because you go into these meetings and it's like maybe like a couple ladies and there's like men right all over the place. It's just go find your tribe of people and just connect with them and just start learning and gathering information, because like I don't know about you, Julie, but the groups that we belong to, we are more than happy to share our knowledge and help. Yeah, there are people that might not resonate and do the same thing, but we totally like give us a call, any questions, whatever, right? We'll be more than happy to share, whatever value we could bring to someone. So
I love that so much about this space and the generosity and the abundance mindset. And really the women within the multifamily niche really just take care of each other. I have seen it just time and again. And and the development of so many different networks where women can go and be around women. Because I mean, in all reality, a lot of gentlemen might not understand. So if you're listening and you're a gentleman, it's not always comfortable for women to go into that male dominated environment. And so sometimes, if one of you gentlemen listening is feeling like, oh, a little left out, or a little like, oh gosh, those women, why do they, just know that other warrior investor women are being trained up, and that's where they need to do it, because that's the comfort and the safety. And they'll enter the space and everyone grows.
Oh no, 100%.
Yeah, there's enough properties to go around for all of us to take a piece of it.
That's right. What's the best way? Why don't we go Alice and then Doris? Like if someone wanted to connect, I always encourage people listening to, if these ladies are resonating with you, make sure you reach out and connect with them. And the best way to connect with Alice is
email or phone. Email is just Alice, and it's at 2savvysis.com. So it's the number 2 and then SAVVYSIS.com. That's the best and easiest way to look for me. But otherwise, I'll give my cell phone number to anybody that wants to call and have a chat. It's 920-205-0226. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I'm best through email. just because I'm always on the road. So calling me might be a little bit difficult. My email is very similar to Alice's. Instead of Alice, it's Doris. So DORIS at twosavvysis.com. And we usually respond very quickly to it. And shamelessly, we actually do not have a website up and running because we're so stuck in the day-to-day of just trying to network and meet people and actually making things happen that we kind of forgotten about the fundamentals, which is having a website. So we're working on that.
I think when they said take massive action,
Yeah.
we actually like took massive action when we did our first raise. We didn't even have business cards. Like,
Yeah.
none of the things that they say you should get, these,
So we didn't follow the protocol. We just did step 10 and then 8 and then back to 1 and then 2.
So just so anybody else is listening, if they have to worry about getting a website or a business card or a name or whatever it is that you're planning to like move, don't worry about it. So, like,
I love that so much.
Get at it.
No more excuses, people. I live in a small town of 2,500 people, and I'm 2.5 hours away from Spokane, Washington. And that's what I say often. I'm like, there are no excuses. You can network, you can get out, you can get to know people. You guys prove once again, there are no excuses. You don't have to have all these fancy bells, shiny objects, right?
No.
In
I
order
was gonna say, if
to,
you look at our website, there's a parking page. So obviously we need to fix that by the end of the year.
you're like, we booked the domain, we'll get to the rest later.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today on Ask Me How I Know. You ladies are lovely, and I love everything that you represent and embody and what you're doing for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having
Julie.
us.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.